You heard that right. The numbers are out, and just like many predicted, a clear boycott took place. The WNBA All-Star Game may have reached about 2 million viewers, which is technically up from the 900,000 range in 2023. But when compared to last year's event, it's actually a significant drop, about 36% to be exact. Media outlets like ESPN are trying to spin that into a positive by calling it the second most watched All-Star Game ever. Sure, that sounds impressive, but it conveniently ignores the sharp drop-off from 2024. It's another example of pretending Caitlin Clark doesn't exist, or more specifically, trying to hide how essential she is to the WNBA's momentum. ESPN attempted to make the numbers look better by skipping over 2024 entirely and jumping straight from 2023 to 2025, manufacturing a storyline of supposed growth. This isn't about simple comparisons. It's a calculated strategy to make the absence of Caitlin Clark appear irrelevant. But fans aren't buying it. When the 2025 All-Star Game took place in Indianapolis, Clark's home arena, it should have been the WNBA's shining moment. Instead, the ratings plummeted, and ESPN responded with deception. Rather than acknowledge a 36% drop in viewership from 2024's 3.4 million to 2.2 million, they compared the numbers to 2023 when Clark wasn't even in the league. That's not just spin. That's statistical manipulation. This was a complete PR move designed to fabricate a trajectory of growth when the truth shows otherwise. Let's not forget that ticket prices dropped nearly 50% within hours of Clark announcing she couldn't play due to injury, from $121 down to just $64. This wasn't just a minor dip, it was a full-on economic nosedive. Fans refunded tickets, canceled travel plans, and stopped watching. Casual supporters showed they weren't interested in a WNBA showcase without its biggest star. The ripple effects expose just how reliant the league has become on a single player. Clark has already missed 10 games due to injuries this season, after a flawless attendance record in college and her rookie year. That's a red flag for the league. If she's unavailable, how many fans tune out permanently? Many fans who DM'd influencers and media figures said outright they were boycotting the game. People refused to attend. Even creators and reporters like those at Hollywood Buzzing chose to skip covering the event in person, citing the officiating issues and what they called systemic disrespect toward Clark. And it shows. No matter how you spin it, 1.25 million viewers didn't show up. It's not about uplifting one player. It's about recognizing who truly drives the league's visibility. Yes, the WNBA is bigger than one person, but there isn't another player moving the needle like Clark. If she left Indiana for another team, viewership in Indiana would collapse. This isn't speculation, it's reality. Plenty of people saw she was injured and immediately said, "I'm not watching." The numbers don't lie. If Caitlin Clark is out, a large chunk of the audience checks out. ESPN knows this, which is why they tried to bury it. Instead of reporting honestly that ratings dipped more than 1 million viewers compared to 2024, they highlighted a 158% rise from 2023, when Clark was still in college. That's not just a misleading stat. It's a deliberate attempt to hide the truth. And it's especially hypocritical since ESPN spent all season crediting Clark for boosting ratings and attendance. You can't have it both ways. Either Clark matters, or she doesn't. The fact that they picked 2023 as their reference year instead of 2024 basically confirms that the league exists in two different eras, before Clark and after Clark. Comparing today's numbers to pre-Clark data is dishonest unless the goal is to shield the league from criticism. The growth they're pushing is fake if it disappears the moment one player isn't there. That's not growth, that's dependency. This kind of manipulation becomes even more problematic during collective bargaining negotiations. WNBA players wore "Pay us what you owe us" shirts during All-Star Weekend to push for higher salaries, citing increased ratings as leverage. But ESPN's misleading narrative undercuts their bargaining position by falsely suggesting stability and independence from Clark. That's not just unethical, it's financially damaging. Corporate sponsors rely on honest audience data when investing. If they're being misled by skewed stats, the trust collapses. Clark and other stars like Nafisa Collier have pointed to record-breaking numbers as evidence of the league's value. But with ESPN distorting the truth, it becomes impossible to know what the real value is. ESPN is not just a broadcaster. They're a financial partner in the WNBA. That makes their editorial choices even more suspect. They aren't just reporting. They're influencing business decisions worth millions. Companies like Nike, Wilson, and Gatorade, who invested based on inflated growth figures, could reconsider those deals if they realized the numbers were built on unstable foundations. And it doesn't stop there. ESPN's deception affects international media as well. Overseas broadcasters who rely on ESPN for American sports data might think the WNBA is booming, not realizing it's almost entirely driven by one player. That's hundreds of millions of dollars in international media strategy being impacted by false narratives. What's even more damaging is how this impacts trust in women's sports overall. When networks mislead the public, it reinforces the stereotype that women's sports coverage isn't trustworthy. That undermines everything athletes have been building for years. And it harms the next generation of journalists, too. ESPN is supposed to be a model of sports reporting. But if journalism students are learning from this kind of manipulated coverage, they're getting the wrong message. The ripple effect is huge. Younger fans, especially Gen Z, are incredibly sharp. They grew up online and can smell media manipulation from a mile away. That's why more and more people are turning to independent outlets, like Hollywood, buzzing for real sports commentary. These new media voices don't have the same financial interests and offer transparency that legacy media outlets like ESPN are losing. Once viewers stop trusting your numbers, you lose influence. That's the hole ESPN is digging for itself. Even streaming services like ESPN Plus and Disney Plus are vulnerable here. They track viewer engagement more accurately than traditional TV. They know how long people watched, when they dropped off, and what they clicked on next. If that data shows people tuned out when Clark wasn't playing, then the problem is even bigger than ESPN's TV spin admits. And if that's the case, ESPN is risking future streaming revenue and advertising contracts. This has direct implications for Disney stockholders and investor confidence. Why? Because if Clark's presence determines whether a digital broadcast succeeds or fails, the whole investment strategy for women's sports could collapse overnight if she gets injured again or retires early. Ultimately, ESPN's biggest failure here isn't just statistical manipulation. It's admitting, without saying it, that the WNBA cannot thrive without Clark. And if ESPN doesn't believe in the league's strength, why should anyone else? Fans, advertisers, players, they all deserve better than smoke and mirrors. ESPN has crossed a line. They've chosen narrative over truth, and that's a gamble that could cost the WNBA everything it's gained. Until coverage gets real, and the league starts building stars beyond Caitlin Clark, they'll be stuck in this fragile model that can't survive honest reporting.